Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with your host, Jake and Scott. In this week's episode, we're talking about Sagamore Spirit. It's been multiple years since we've talked about this brand, and we are joined by National Global Advocacy. He's got a fancy title that I've already forgotten, but he does a lot of things for Sagamore Spirit. So we got Clint Spotleson, aka Spotty, joining us tonight. So sit back and buckle into the latest episode of the Bourbon Lens. Spotty, what's going on, man?
Hey.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. And to make it easy for us, global advocacy and engagement manager. So
Yeah,
you didn't miss much. It's like 300 letters to try to spell that one out. So
it's all on the business card.
It's like when you think about important people on business cards, you got a nice title.
It's a really fancy way of saying I'm like the biggest cheerleader for the brand, pretty much.
Hey, somebody's got to be it. Might as well be you, right?
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you redoing this last week. Technical difficulties on my end didn't allow us to happen, but you're healthy now. Everything from technology is working at this current moment. We've already had some hiccups this evening, but we're well on our way. We're a minute into this already. But excited to talk to you because there's a lot going on with you all. Like I mentioned, who was it? We had Brian Tracy on 3 years ago, right, Scott? It's been a while.
It's probably been longer than that. I think it's probably been about 4.5 years.
Yeah. So it's been a minute, and we need to catch up on a lot of things because the last time we talked, the distillery wasn't open yet. There was this, little transaction with you all in Disaronno. So there's been a lot that has happened for the brand over the last several years. So Clint, you get to do this and talk about this all the time. Give us a rundown. What's happening with Sagamore currently in today's market?
Yeah, no. So we, let's see, if we're going back to the Brian Tracy days, obviously Brian's not with us anymore. He's moved on to other things, but part of that was because we sold to Disaronno back early last year. So it was kind of finalized in early 2024, kind of late 2023. So we got a little bit of influx from the Italian side. If I've been told correctly, I do believe Kevin Plank still kept a minor part of ownership, but not a huge controlling interest. It's we're now part of the Disaronno family, so it's exciting for them to have an American brand in the portfolio. Have rye whiskey in the portfolio. I mean, they built their backbone on liqueurs for so long. Between Disaronno and Tia Maria, kind of being the big stalwarts of the company, and then they have Zucca, which is a rhubarb marrow. Bartenders love it. Rest of the public is trying to get them used to it, but it's absolutely phenomenal if you're a Fernet fan or a Montenegro fan, any of those. It's kind of that healthy in the middle mix. We have Engine Gin, which launched about 10 years ago. And then we actually also have an Irish whiskey in the portfolio now too, the Busker, which comes from Royal Oak. So, but Sagamore is the newest child to it. And, obviously one of the biggest. It was a pretty big acquisition for us. So.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big deal. And Disaronno has one of the best taglines from a marketing perspective. Disaronno on the rocks. And that was it.
Simple.
I've never had it, but I mean, I can tell you that commercial that I saw it about a gazillion times watching any sports game.
It's funny because it's still brought up almost daily when I mention, well, yeah, so I do actually help run advocacy for the U.S. for Disaronno as a whole portfolio. And anytime it comes up, that's usually one of the first things you hear. It's like, man, I missed the little commercial with the bartender winking, saying Disaronno on the rocks with the little wink and the twist. And it's funny how relevant that commercial stayed for. I mean, it's honestly, not to age any of us in this room, but it's probably like 15, 20 years now that the commercial's been around, believe it or not.
Wow.
So again, like I said, I want to age anybody in this room remembering. We all saw it obviously when we were kids because, liquor was allowed to be advertised on Saturday morning cartoons back in the day. So
G.I. Joe and Disaronno.
Yeah, this isn't gray. This is fake. The beard's actually dark, I swear. So
as Jake just ate his, a big giant Jethro bowl of Fruit Loops and, watching Bugs Bunny. 15 years ago, in all honesty, though, I was almost of legal drinking age. So that's, good. Scott was of legal drinking age, 15 years is a long time ago, but
you don't try to age me now.
He was in the throes of college or, grad school.
By that point, I mean, I feel like all of us in this room by that age have probably tried Disaronno at least once. I mean, it's iconic. I tell people, like, where do you first remember? I'm like, my grandparents growing up. Like, when I was a kid, I had a bottle sitting, we're celebrating our 500th anniversary this year with the brand. So,
yeah.
Yeah, so that it's funny. We're 500 with them, and then Sagamore is in here. Good old this past year was for the distillery the 8th year for the brand. This will be 12 this year. So it's a big juxtaposition when you've got a 500-year-old anniversary, and then the brand that I focus on the most is technically like becoming a teenager at this point now. So can you guys hear me? I cannot hear anything on your end. You guys are moving.
You good? Can't hear you, Jake.
Do we just have to? Did it just stop the? Okay, I can't hear. Yeah.
No, you're good. It was not an anybody thing. It was the Zoom wouldn't let me go off mute.
Oh.
It wasn't a Clint thing. Yeah.
Okay.
No one was doing anything. I
Okay.
get Scott to talk.
Weird.
And he just
I'll
sits
take
it
the
there.
like
headphones out.
paused
It
on the
seems to be
screen.
working easier on this anyway, so I can actually hear you guys clear. Can you hear me better? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I can hear you good. Yeah, but so I didn't realize that the distillery was that old. I didn't realize it was 8 years old at this point. That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, we just had the party. I was just there last month. So we did a fun little
So
weekend. We had tours, tastings, live music. We got it quick midday, right when everything was at its fullest. We got a really quick, really fast thunderstorm that rolled through, dumped a bunch of rain, pushed everybody inside, and then was gone 10 minutes later. So
are y'all
That's
still
crazy.
doing the pennies proof?
So Penny's Proof is not going to be at the level it was anymore. We're actually changed it up a little bit, and we're actually doing Made in Maryland Day now. So, and that's kind of one of the things we're going to touch on. I know is the bottle and bond, and that's kind of become our day to celebrate, our Maryland products, which started out as Penny's Proof, which was for those that aren't familiar with the program, it started out as little test tubes where we gave you a couple so you could kind of see them side by side. The very first year was unaged, and they kind of just went with a little bit of age. You can see what we're working on. We're at the point now where we've kind of made that our bottle and bond release date. If we are going to do a bottle and bond at the distillery, which I think will be something we'll do every year. But it's just kind of a day to celebrate the fact that at this point now we're making everything in Maryland. That's usually in the fall. The distillery anniversary falling in the spring kind of works out really well though, because it's a great kickoff to summer for us. And it is the true anniversary date for us. So, I think when we set it up, we didn't really plan on Penny's Proof being anything more than just doing that part of it, which, for those that are familiar, again, it was a big people would line up just to get those little tubes and collect them and share them with friends and drink bottles, in the parking garage across the street and have a good time. And, now it's what made it Maryland Day. It's kind of fun because, I mean, we have full bottles, full labeled, and it's 100% Maryland made rye whiskey, which is great to be able to say.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say whenever we first recorded, that was on the horizon, and they were talking about we're not sure how far it is. The whiskey's gonna let us know when it's ready, and so to see this product come out, I mean,
Oh yeah, and I mean,
obviously kudos.
here's to get we'll get the hype train started a little early on this one. For anybody that had the 9-year last year, that's we still have some MGP barrels, and so we're doing some stuff with that. The 9-year was probably our best received LTO we ever had. I mean, we had people that were like, I don't want to overorder, they underordered, then we sold out immediately. And I mean, I was talking to a liquor store in Georgia that the guy wanted 30 cases, then held back. Ended up pre-selling 25 cases and got like 6.
wow.
So he had a lot of people he had to tell, and it was one of those that it's just the popularity matched it. We held some barrels back because that's our barrel program this year now is a 9 years. So if anybody's buying private barrels, they're getting a 9-year Sagamore, and then we're really excited to this fall drop the 10-year on everybody. So if it's received it, this would be our first time having a double digit age statement. One of the beautiful parts though is as you know with Sagamore, we've never tried to outprice anybody. We're not trying to pull out these $300-$400 bottles. Maybe 20 years from now we'll have a bottle from year one, like barrel one. Then you might see it. But we try to keep everything, for the much like Maryland, we and Baltimore as a whole, we want to keep it for the working man. So keep the prices low. The quality's there. We just don't feel like overcharging for it.
No, I really appreciate that. And I was looking at the website the other day because I was really just trying to figure out what was what, because there is a variety of different releases. And it's cool because you can go back and look at the library, what's been retired and what is, available in market today. And so one of the things that I was curious about, and I've not been to the distillery, that's kind of like one of those things, want to get to the distillery and see it. What kind of specs, like how much whiskey are you all able to lay down in a year?
That's a great question. I mean, right now we have 9 full tanks we can operate at any time. We're running 4 of them, so we're not even at full production yet. This is the number that Ryan, and Ryan's our VP of Ops, Master Distiller. Every time I ask him, I don't even think he's 100% positive what the final number will be, because we've never pushed the envelope. We haven't had to yet. So hopefully 5 years from now, this will be a different conversation. I'll be like, yeah, we're running 20, all 9 tanks go in. But right now, I mean, in storage at North Point, I want to say we're at for about 100,000. If I recall properly, we're at about 65, 70,000 barrels right now.
Wow.
Damn.
So I mean, you've laid down quite a few barrels, even if you're not even running at full capacity, which is great. And people are like, well, rye whiskey only sells 1/10 of what bourbon sells or whatever, but that's still a crap ton of rye whiskey.
Oh God, I mean, you guys are based in Kentucky. I was just out there. There's a reason why when you're driving through the hills, you see rick houses everywhere. Once you get outside of Louisville, I mean, it's people don't grasp how much whiskey. There's more barrels of whiskey than there is. Is it people or is it like sheep? It was something ridiculous.
It
Like more
seems like
barrels
it's
a week.
more
Yeah, in Kentucky.
more barrels of whiskey than blades of grass at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I was staying in Bardstown, swung south a little bit, and just going through Heaven Hill. I forget how many rick houses. I think there's like 20 rick houses on the experience site, and that's just one of their locations.
Yeah.
So
Think
and you got
about
to
it.
think the size of those, the amount of barrels in those. I mean, right now to give you an idea, so 70,000 and room for 100K, we have 2 storehouses. We have space on the land that we use, and it's not a huge property. North Point's probably about 15 minutes from the distillery. Full acreage, maybe 15, 20 acres. Like, it's not a big property at all. You literally pull in, it's a little courtyard, house 1, house 2, and there's a big empty area that we can build a third one. And then that third one would be our largest one if we build it out. So, I mean, right now, I think the initial plans to get it going are there. I mean, we're kind of waiting to see what happens with the whiskey world this year, just because there's been some up and downs. Bourbon's tailed off a tiny bit, but rye is kind of getting this new little renaissance on the side. So it's, we're really playing to see what's going to happen with it. But I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds minuscule, but I mean, that translates to, we're doing about, I think our hope is to get to 40,000 this year. If we could get past 50,000 cases this year, it'd be amazing. So
So you said Rise, what you see is kind of like a little renaissance on the side.
yeah,
Do you think that's mainly driven by bartenders, or do you think that's driven by the whiskey curious bourbon consumer who's wanting to branch
more
out?
the whiskey curious side now. It's the bartenders have always been behind rye. It's funny, like going back, my bar career, I can think like 15 years ago, 12 years ago, talking about, and there was people that were big rye fans already. I think a lot of that was with the cocktail world was just the fact that rye was the more known used in the 1800s. So a lot of the classics called for rye. And so you saw with the bartending community, it's always been there. And bartenders are always going to want some weird anyway. I mean, there's a reason why you go to any cocktail bar and it's like Fernet and Malort are the shots of choice. Weirdly,
Yeah.
I used to love Fernet. I weirdly am allergic to it now, and not made up. Swear to God, like my throat swells. And um, Malort,
I'm
I just
allergic to
can't figure
Malort
out why anybody wants
just
that
by
torture in their
choice.
life. Yeah, Malort's the one that gets me. I mean, people are like, "Oh no, it's Malort. It's fun." I go, "No, don't act like you actually love that. Like, come on." I don't know how PG we got to stay on this call, but
You
I
don't
mean,
have to say G at all. You're good.
okay, there's no G, because I mean, I literally want to look at people like, come on, guys, like, there's I can think of some of the worst stuff on the planet I'd rather have happen to me than have to like shoot like multiple shots of Malort in a row. Like, you can
Well,
like
there's a
start like
bar
stabbing
here
my
in
eyeballs out before doing it.
Yeah.
they have it's called a mag bar shot. So it's Magnolia Bar and it's Jägermeister and Malort half and half.
Yeah, Jalort. So you
It's terrible.
actually I've got a story for I've got a funny story for that one. It's funny that's the shot you brought up because it's called So it actually has a name. It's Jalort. If you open the Amaro book from Bradley Thomas Stevens, it's in there. And in the shot section, it's quoted to Dennis Gobis from Roosevelt Room in Austin, Texas. Great bar. Good friend of mine. The irony to it is he knew Brad, so we got the recipe in, but that was actually a shot I created about 12 years ago. Not even a joke.
You're a
Very small
twisted
world. It was
man. You're a
Portland Cocktail
twisted
Week.
man.
We had a ton of leftover inventory that we're trying to burn through. At this point, I was helping kind of run the liquor rooms for it. And we were like, let's come up with something stupid. I saw like there was like 4 or 5 cases of Jaeger and 4 or 5 cases of Malort. And so we just started mixing it 50-50 in pitchers. And because Jaeger actually gives it enough sweetness to shine through. It just, it kind of was like a more bitter Chinar note to it almost. But we were calling it Jalort. We made up this whole fake like marketing thing with Ja Rule, and it was gonna be like Jalort because every thug needs a lady and stuff like that. Like,
Oh man.
there's actually, I think if you go far enough on my Instagram, there's even a picture of like Dennis sipping it because I was doing photos and stuff like that. But it was like a playful game that we joked about at Portland Cox Week and made its way into a book. And I'm happy to see people are doing the combo under different names now. That's awesome. That's a surprise to me today. So that's pretty cool.
It makes my stomach hurt. That really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there, because if you make a cocktail with Sagamore spirits, you're going to be a very happy individual. So you're a cocktail guy. Before we talk about the individual releases, obviously old fashions, Manhattans are great calls for your base Sagamore. What other calls would you have with the spirit?
God, I mean, you could do any whiskey sour. I mean, not to pitch multiple brands here, but with our cask strength or even our small batch. Small batch is the mainline one. That's the one that was originally known as the signature. And now that it's 100% made in Maryland, we switch it to small batch because we do 20 barrel dumps when we do bottle it. So it is a true small batch, which is awesome. And it's now 93 proof, which way better than 83 proof just because 93 proof is awesome. Doing a 50-50 amaretto sour is slightly heavier. Deso sour with Sagamore cut into it, so you lose the sweetness. And then you go straight lemon juice into it. Affectionately known as the Morgenthaler sour from a really famous bartender, Jeffrey Morgenthaler, out of Portland, Oregon. He kind of wanted to rethink some classics, and so he did this probably, God, I think it's been like 15 years now, 16 years since he originally did it. I want to say Clyde Common was the first spot, but he was doing amaretto sours where he did like almost like a 2 parts to 1 part amaretto to high proof bourbon or rye. And so it just becomes an actual really delicious cocktail. That's a great way to have it. It's just a new great way to rethink it. Another one I've been big on, I've been pitching a lot for summertime is crushes. So crushes are very Baltimore. This is going to start a fight for any listeners from Delaware, but it's a big Chesapeake Bay battle thing here between who created the crush, whether it's Delaware or Maryland. They're big in Baltimore, and essentially, originally a crush was vodka, little triple sec, OJ. You could throw like a squeeze of lemon to give it a little more acid if you wanted to, and Sprite. But you see this whole renaissance in Baltimore, people redoing the cocktail. And so the one I've been playing around was actually gets rid of the orange curacao and use either cherry liqueur, like a little cherry puree, do some fresh OJ, kick up a little bit more lemon juice, Sagamore, and then hit it with a little float of ginger ale. It's I call it the sour cherry crush. It's the names in it. You can crush these things. I mean, legitimate. I did big bartender charity thing called Barmania. I did as our side thing, and we almost ran out of product in like 2 to 3 hours.
That's one of the things that I have wanted to do. So my parents have a pool, and I take my kids over there, and I have a plethora of whiskey, right? Like there's really no shortage between Scott and I. If I'm like, Scott, I don't have this bottle. Do you have it? He probably does. And we can switch back and forth if we need to. But it's like calling summer cocktails with bourbon or rye is sometimes hard, right? Because they can be a little heavy. Like, and my mind goes right to Gold Rush, right?
Yeah.
Or a hot, super simple drinks. But it's kind of fun to hear different things when you can add a little bit of bubbles or carbonation to it to give it like more effervescent. So it does feel like more of a pool drink or a bay drink, as you kind of talk about, where you are in Maryland or Delaware. And shout out to Brandon and Ryan, 2 of our Patreon members. They're Delawareans. They will fight you probably on this. So they did send in some questions, though. We do ask our Patreon members if, they have any questions from time to time. And they did. They were really interested. And I got to go to my phone. I got to make sure I quote Brandon correctly on this, because if I don't, that would just be a missed opportunity to put words
And
in his mouth.
they might take issue with you calling them Delawareans. Is that even appropriate? Is
Sounds
that
right to
what
me.
you call them?
Delawareites? I don't.
I don't know.
Delawarean sounds.
Deloisians?
Deloisians.
Deloisians?
That's it.
Do you all intend on bringing the port finished back? That was one of the questions that they asked.
So I will say it like this. On a mass scale where you're easy to find it, probably not. But being in Delaware, they are close enough to Baltimore that we've started transition ways. So one of the things we did early on with the brand, and it's something that looking back down probably wasn't the greatest of moves, but it was good to get us starting and our name out there. Was we did so many releases, it became kind of the bread and butter. People were like, "Okay, what's your next release? What's your next release?" And they didn't want to buy the core three. So now we've pulled back. The core three are the bigger focus now. So our small batch, the double oak, which the double oak originally was supposed to be a one-off too, and happy accident that went right. Now it's
So damn
our
good.
second highest selling thing. The cash in, which we'll touch on in a minute because we just redid that one. Those are the three we're pushing, and we're gonna move a lot of these these like weird finishes to barrel to distillery releases only. But we're gonna do them over the course of the year. We'll post them, and I mean, to give an idea, and there's a chance like maybe once every year or 2 or 3 years, we might be like, let's do a mass run on the port and do it as a limited. But it'll be every 2 to 3 years. It's not going to be, where you'll see it pop up maybe once a year, every 8 months. Like we want to give it a lot back to the basics of what we're doing. I mean, now that we are 100% Maryland made, we're not doing MGP juice anymore. Almost not. We've got, very limited left on the double oak that should be done by end of the year. And so we're at a point now where we'd rather build the brand with the Maryland product and then kind of surprise people with those little gems. I mean, like the next port finish, think about will be the first 100% Maryland port finish. So that becomes a little more. It becomes a little more special when you think of it this way. I mean, I can tell you just from what I saw at the farm, we do have some stuff laid. I won't get into too much detail, but we have some really cool finishes that are Maryland in there. I will say, I think port was one of the ones I did see. So
There you go.
we were keeping a little bit at the farm. We're getting ready to. Anybody can see us on. So we have Sagamore Farm as well, but where our water source is. But the farm is up for sale currently. We do have a deal to maintain the water rights and everything like that, and still utilize bulk of the property for farming. From what I've been told, the house is pretty much what they get to buy if they buy it. They get the land, but it's an industrial lease at this point for us now. But we're moving the barrels out of the farmhouse into North Point now, so we'll have everything kind of at the same location finally.
So you're saying sign up for the newsletter. We'll keep an eye out for super limited releases in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the best way, Instagram, obviously Sagamore Spirit. We've been revamping a little bit of what we're doing with the Instagram page, trying to get more fun content into it. So not so much just one of the things I noticed even for my first year with the company was like lots of bottle shots. It's like bottle shots, bottle shot at a Christmas tree, bottle shot at Thanksgiving dinner. Great stuff to have, but we want more stuff where he's, Ryan telling a story or like myself going into like, the hazy memory I had from chugging a half a bottle of Jester Mead finish, something like that. So just give you some more quality content that's more fun and kind of engaging and entertaining.
No, for sure. And I think, that's what whiskey is about, right? Like it is about creating that fun experience, that community, because someone can probably relate to, oh, yeah, I did that too. And they're like, I need to go find another bottle of this because I remember that fun time.
Facts.
I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Can you remind me what the mash bill is for this, or do you all tell what that is?
No, 100%. We love Tone because it's kind of what makes Maryland whiskey unique. There's a little bit more corn to it, so we do a double mash bill. Now, both these, as I throw the numbers out, keep in mind we ferment, we distill, and we age separately, and then we blend at bottling. So we do the high rye mash bill, which I've jokingly nicknamed the MGP special because it's kind of what people are used to, and that's at 95.5, 95% rye, 5% malted barley. Bulk right now, Serafino rye that we worked with the University of Maryland for more drought resistant. Now with temperature change and everything, we need something that could hold up a little bit more. So Serafino's a really great rye for making rye whiskey. That makes up about 85%, 80 to 85%, depending on what you're buying on each blend of those 20 barrels. So 16 to 17 barrels. And then we have the low rye. So the low rye is a 52 rye, same Serafino rye, 43% corn, 5% malted barley. All the corn is being grown at the farm. It's all non-GMO. Um, so that's the beautiful part. We try to take as much grain from the farm as we can. Obviously, it's 200 acres. We're doing, 2023, we did 1.6 million pounds of rye. So that's not happening on 200 acres. And so that's why we've been pushing heavier on the Maryland made, because the bulk of it's coming from Maryland. I mean, of course, we always have a contingency plan in case something goes wrong. We have contracts with people, outside of Maryland, but if we can pull 95 to 98% of the grain from Maryland, we're going to do it. So
And
we
what's really
incentivize the farmers to grow it for us.
and so is that latter mash bill more traditional, like old school rye whiskey of George Washington era, or is
Yes
that
and no. It's yeah, I know where you're going with this one, so I apologize for cutting you off on it. But
no, you're good?
why I say yes and no is it is to a degree that it's when you look at notebooks, we knew there was corn added to it. We didn't know how much. George Washington might be the most famous notebook there is, but when the company was started, we're trying to pinpoint a recipe. There's not really people didn't take that great of notes on their percentages because it was so much of a throw some of this in, throw some of this in. This tastes great. So you see a good amount of corn in it, but not. It's not going to be like a 51-49. Essentially rye grew very well in Maryland and Virginia, and they pretty much just like the sweetness corn gave to it. So they threw
Yeah,
some corn in. So what we did was we started playing around with them. We were in our early days with MGP. Ryan sat down there with them and worked on the recipe, and we were trying to find that perfect amount of corn to add to it, so we would be able to represent Maryland rye the right way, but still be identifiable to the modern rye drinker. Because I think
yeah,
if we were to try to go for a true, you know, all in, like what some of these rumored Maryland recipes were from the 1850s, it would kind of blindside some people because it is like 25% corn in there, 20%. It gets higher. At current rate, the way we have it, when you run the numbers on it, it comes to about 10% corn overall in the mash, which is still a good amount. 5% multiplier, so about 85% rye at the final content. But it's noticeable. You still get the heat from the rye, but there's
Yeah.
definitely a sweetness to it that's easy to drink.
It's
So
almost like a lightly sweetened iced tea. It's got the herbaceousness and things, but it still has it's not just a punch in your face
yeah,
rye.
it's
It's
not
got the
like if you have a sweet tea where you're adding tons of sugar. This is like taking a pitcher of iced tea and adding like 2 sugar packets to it and stirring it in, like just enough. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
that little hint on the backside.
yeah.
yeah. Your uncle who has a little bit of a trimmer who like dumped the sugar in and went like a whole cup and a half. You know, Southern sweet tea, right? This is the Northern sweet tea.
Yeah, very, very northern. I mean, very minimal, very minimal. It's not the who's making the Kool-Aid.
I'd almost forgotten about the mash bill being that
Well,
unique
that's
blend.
why I asked because it has been so long, and I kind of had forgotten about that. And one thing I will say, because I've drank both of the bottled and bond, which has kind of become like a flagship type of deal for you all, and the new cast strength, which is right here. And I failed as a podcast teammate, but there's the new label, look and feel. I'll get a little closer. You can see that 100% Maryland made there, 123 proof, so it's got a little oomph to it. But
It's a
what I say
monster.
about both of these whiskeys, they drink extremely underproof. They are not like bold, poppy in your face. Like I would have thought this was more like 110 to 115, and I would have thought the 100 proof was more 95, 90, which is great. Like I like that a ton.
Yeah, it's funny, you brought it up with the cash trick like that because the original cash trick that people saw was a 4 to 7 year, 112.2 proof. And even that one drank like 104, 105 maybe. So that would never drink that hot. When we transitioned and we finally were able to transition at the end of last year. So like I said, we just celebrated our 8th anniversary at the distillery. End of year 7 is where you saw the last MGP barrels go into cash strength. And at that time, we kept it at 112 too. I mean, honestly, I get asked that question a lot. And the idea with the 112 too was to keep it consistent while we were transitioning over. That way, there was never like a big fluctuation that would throw people off, and maybe flavors would taste different. We wanted to have it very comparable as because each year we were adding more and more of. That was the one that you really saw like more and more of our own juice going into it. Now the cool part is now that it's the new one, the executive decision was made to make this like more of a true cast strength, and so we kicked it up to 123. The exciting thing is it starts hitting shelves for the Florida drinkers. You got the first shipment in the U.S. and it's in, so it should start hitting shelves very, very soon. The distributor, I was in Florida 3 weeks ago, and it actually arrived while I was there. So, very exciting time. But with the 123, we're now doing it as a 7-year minimum age statement. So
Wow.
it's no longer 4 to 7; it will be 7 minimum. Next year, you might see a little bit of 8 thrown in the mix, but that idea was that, now moving forward, it will just always be 123 and be at least 7 years. And we're still going to keep it at a fantastic price. I mean, the bottle price might go up retail a couple dollars. I know we're looking at maybe like a 5% swing on it. That's it. So 5 to 10% from our end. So I would say
It's
maybe expect that.
or 8.99 SRP.
Currently, and I'm more marketing side, and so I have 50 different states I'm thinking about. But I would say it's ranges in that like 55 to 65 range normally. You might see it go like to 65, 70 now, but
The
still
value.
$70 for a 7-year minimum is phenomenal.
Yeah. And most ryes are probably ready at like 3.5, 4 years, right? So to be able to keep it and kind of get over that first wave, right? Because you're going into this bell curve at that like 6, 7, 8, 9 year range. I feel like rye goes, hits a 3 to 4 year at the top peak and then kind of falls down and then does another wave on the back end. So I think that's pretty cool. And then you also have your bottled and bond, which Scott is a big fan of. 100 proof, all Maryland made, 7 years old, crushable. Like
Yeah.
if you're talking about crushable whiskey, this is it. Like Scott, this has to sing to your heart.
Yeah, I think we all know I prefer bourbon to rye, but this having a little bit of sweetness and it's not overwhelming, like herbally, grassy. And like I said, I forgot that the mash bill was that unique blend, so it speaks to me.
Yeah.
Just having that little touch of corn sweetness, 100 proof, can't go wrong.
I mean, it's a beauty to have. I'm excited. I was really excited when we actually released it this year. This one you'll see definitely distillery. If we have a little bit extra, we'll probably put it on the market, but each year. But right now, I think the plan is to try to keep as much distillery because that is replacing pennies proof is kind of our big thing every year. So I think you'll see a little bit more distillery driven on that one, but it is. I mean, this is our 4th edition. This was the first Maryland, and it is. I tried 2 and 3, and it was night and day. The taste profile different. This is the one in the entire family that I've noticed a pretty big taste differential on between the Maryland stuff and the MGP stuff. And I have to say the Maryland stuff blew my mind. So it's a positive, very positive change on this one. Yeah, it's exciting, and and I agree with you that like having this one right now at the HMSQ is great. Having it at 40 right now, like I don't think we're going to fluctuate too much because again, that bell curve. I mean, that's kind of why even with the small batch, we keep it at 4 to 6. Surprising, the mash bills do age a little differently. I guess that probably wouldn't be too surprising, but the corn, the low rye, the higher corn one does take a little bit longer. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pumped. I'm really excited to see what happens with our next run on it. Just because I mean, staring at the bottle now, and I set 4-7. It's been a long day. I've been on calls for 13 hours now coming into this. So 7 years on the Maryland made.
Yeah.
I
So
apologize. I apologize to my bosses are going to see us go, what are you thinking? So you're supposed to be our expert on this. I'm like, it happens occasionally.
you're good, man. And, just quick question. Would you ever potentially release a 3 bottle set? Like, single barrel 95.5, single barrel of the Maryland style, and then a blended component so people could see, that tasting kit. You think about from a marketing perspective, kind of your deal. Think about like you all could host tastings like, hey, this is component 1, this is component 2, this is how they come together to make component 3, which is, our everyday shelf product.
It's not something we thought about going more retail with. I mean, there's certain tastings we can do at the distillery with it itself because obviously we have access to all the juice right there. But that's kind of an interesting problem. I'll have to mention one to Ryan. Maybe do it as like a Christmas special edition set or something like that. That set where you get, a small batch, and then you have your 95.5 and your 52.43 and 375s on the side or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Bourbon Lens Tasting Club. You could do it for us. We could be your guinea pigs. We got about 25 people. It's a perfect tasting panel. I'm just saying, and
Yeah,
all
I
of
mean we
our
we have the glass, we have the bottles already. The cool thing, kind of with tariffs and whether or not they're going to happen or not, is we definitely bought heavy on bottles a couple years back, so we have enough bottles to last us for a while. So that won't be an issue raising prices. We have enough glass we could play around with something like that.
yeah, sure. Well, hey, I'm just saying, if you need a guinea pig, we raise our hand, and we're happy to do that for the people. So the question I always ask for, a brand, kind of like large scale craft. That's what I would call you all, right? You're pumping out a lot of whiskey, and you're continuing to grow. What do you all think about, like, from a leadership level, the next 3 to 5 years, right? Because you got to project that out. You got to think of that. What do you all hope for Sagamore over that next kind of oomph?
I mean, my personal goal would be to see the cash strength take off, at this 123. The double oak get a lot more steakhouse, and just love like seeing on bar carts. And then I want the small batch to be the go-to rye at every cocktail. Those core three, having all three on a back bar, having the small batch is priced at a point now in most states where it's in competition. You can use it in a cocktail and feel good about it. I won't delve state by state, but we've got it at, this is a bartender lingo move. Kind of your golden numbers to be at $1 an ounce or less, because that means your profit margin. If you're running it at say an old fashioned, 2 ounce old fashioned, that's $2 just for the whiskey right there. And then you take the sugar, you take the bitters into account. You can run a 10, 11, $12 old fashioned and be running you need to
80.
essentially run like a 20% liquor cost to be profitable. When you start considering labor, lights, all that kind of stuff into it, the lower the better, of course. 20% is just kind of like if you're above that, I've never ran a program where I saw people succeed going over 20% heavily. So um, when you can hit that dollar an ounce point, that makes it in the conversation of it's good use for cocktails, because now it's affordable to use. So having that
Well,
built in now is kind of it's a big jumping point for us, because now I can look at people and be like, hey, yeah, you want to do that with do a Manhattan with the Sagamore rye? Cool. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. You can pull off a Manhattan, do a 2 ounce pour, and be okay with it. So.
Yeah. Scott, why are we paying $25 for old fashions in Kentucky now?
where the hell are you going to?
Anywhere in
Maybe I'm
downtown
not
Louisville.
checking. Maybe I'm not checking the bill enough. But
I
yeah,
mean, anymore you go to
15
any
bucks. I would say
major
15
city, and
bucks.
I'm not counting Louisville as a major city, but it's the major city that I live in, right? So it's major to me. You go downtown, it's $22, $23 easy for a drink at, the Omni or Taj anymore. Like any of the bars, like it gets rather pricey, and I'm like, I can go buy that stuff at home. I have it, like, you know, bitters,
Yeah.
water, ice. I'll make my own cocktails. Even if they're shitty, I'll make my own cocktails because it's free.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
getting the buy-in of, you know, a Maryland style rye, you say like you get that on the menu. And because I think people drinking cocktails now, people don't just say like, "Give me an old fashioned," and then because usually the response is, "Well, do you want bourbon or rye?" And then, "Do you have a preference of bourbon or rye?" Like, so if you could just have a cocktail menu that says Maryland style rye, you know, old fashioned, boom, you could definitely pitch that because people care about what spirits go in their cocktails now, which I don't really think before it really mattered. It's like, no, just put bourbon in it, just whatever you want. And it was always the well, whatever.
yeah, I mean, even the Wells now, though. I mean, that's a sidebar off Sagamore, but I mean, hell, like in the rye world, like I'm never gonna say no to a shot of Rittenhouse. Like Rittenhouse is a good product. It's that's one of the big things that I don't like when I hear people go on tangents about how bad certain brands are and stuff like that. Because we all drink it at some point. Honestly, a lot of this whiskey is good whiskey. It's the years ago I had Fred No say it to me. Jim Beam, for those on the call that might not know who Fred No is, but it's Bourbon Lens. So I'm guessing everybody knows who Fred No is on this call. Fred No actually said to me, he's like, yeah, we look at it like all these guys grew up together, and they, like his best friend's Eddie Russell. since they were kids.
Yeah.
And the way they look at it is they're like, yo, this is, you know, Jim Beam is my family's apple pie. Wild Turkey is his family's apple pie. It's all, if you're disrespecting it, you're disrespecting our friend's family's apple pie. And that's the way
Yeah.
they look at it. You know, it's just family recipes. And, you know, for us, ours is unique. We're the East Coast cousins that are coming out to visit. And we just happen to have a rye that has, you know, a little bit of the Kentucky love with that corn still in it. So
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for what the future holds for Sagamore Spirit and what you all have created. The Bottle and Bond is fantastic. If you're in the area as Bottle and Bond Day for you all comes up, you know, make sure you're stopping by the distillery. Make sure you're following them. But the cask strength, if you're looking for a punchy rye that can play in any cocktail, can play in a neat pour over ice, you know, I think you have a rye whiskey that is something that a lot of people can get behind in that space. So, Clint, I really appreciate you hanging out with us to the
absolutely.
late hours here, not so late in your time. But, you know, you mentioned it earlier. Where can people stay connected to you all, learn all about, you know, Sagamore? Because I think that's the most important thing as we leave here. How can they continue to follow, you know, your all's journey?
Yeah. I mean, I think the easiest ways are, you know, Sagamore Spirit on Instagram at Sagamore Spirit, SAGAMORESPIRT, one word. I said that really fast, but I hope everybody here knows how to spell spirit. That might be the easiest path. I post a lot of content. I'm the only Spotty, THE, only ONOY, Spotty, SPOTTY on Instagram as well. So you see a lot of that there. And then just in a store, you see it. If you see it, pick up a bottle because the more people are drinking it, the more we can start doing more fun stuff with it and getting out there more. And you know,
Yeah.
even if it's not the bottle and bond or the cash, the small batch is still, I think, pound for pound, one of my favorite things on the planet now. So, and that's the one you don't mind cracking open a bottle or two with friends and blowing through it. So you buy two of
Well,
those for the price of one cash drink. So,
for sure.
but
Two for
yeah, I
one.
mean,
Like
Instagram
those.
though, Instagram, I mean, that's kind of our big thing. Instagram, our website, sagamorespirit.com. We have a great shop on there. So if you're out and about, do you see me do an event, you'll see some fun merch. But we have a lot of distillery only stuff that's still in our partnerships with Under Armour from back in the day, from our founding days. So, I mean, some of my favorite bar T-shirts I've ever seen, brand T-shirts
Hey, that's
are
why
through,
we're
yeah,
Under
yeah,
Armour,
exactly.
Bourbon Lens is Under Armour. So
we
shout out
planned
to
this.
them.
I was
Yeah.
wearing it last week when we had all the technical difficulties, so it's in the hamper right now. But we had this one that's the Baltimore Orioles font and just says Sagamore across it, black and orange. It is like my favorite brand T-shirt I've ever had. I picked up a second one because I was wearing it so much, it started getting a little fuzzies and like, you know, as you wash something too many times, it started like pulling up a tiny bit. So I made sure before it ran out that I had a backup to
Yeah.
go. So
For sure. Hey, well, we really appreciate you spending some time with us. Thanks, everybody, for learning a little bit more about Sagamore Spirit because we did as well. And we will catch you next time. Until next episode, cheers.
Cheers.
thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thanks a lot, Clint.